When you stop chasing her, the very first thing she notices isn't your absence, it's the sudden change in your energy. She might not admit it to herself, but she feels it instantly. The world teaches men that women only care when you give them more, when you try harder, when you constantly show up. But the truth is far more subtle. She becomes most alert the moment you pull your energy back. Because when you were chasing, she knew exactly where you stood. Your interest kept the dynamic predictable. She didn't have to wonder. She didn't have to question. She didn't have to think. Your attention was consistent, and consistency becomes comfort. But when that comfort disappears, even quietly, something inside her wakes up. She starts noticing the silence. She notices your calmness, the lack of urgency, the absence of emotional pursuit. It's not dramatic. You're not angry. You're not trying to prove a point. You're simply centered. And women feel that shift more deeply than you think. When you no longer pour energy toward her, she feels the space you've created. That space disrupts the pattern she got used to. And now she's left with a question she never had to answer before. Why isn't he chasing? That question starts as a whisper, but it grows. It doesn't matter how busy she is, how many options she claims to have, or how confident she appears. Your silence plants a seed, and that seed becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes attention, and attention becomes emotional investment. That's the irony most men never understand. Chasing a woman reduces her emotional involvement, but your absence increases it. When your energy leaves, her mind starts working. She wonders if she misread your interest. She wonders if something about her made you lose attraction. She wonders if you found someone better or became too focused on your goals to care. She wonders if you woke up and realized your worth. The shift also activates something deeper, her instinct. Women are intuitive. They can sense when a man's energy is turning inward, when he's no longer seeking validation outside himself. That self containment is powerful. It's rare, and it disrupts the emotional rhythm she grew comfortable with. Suddenly, she's not the one evaluating you, you're the one who feels unreachable. That creates a subtle emotional tension, the kind that pulls her back toward you without you having to move a single step. And here's the part many men overlook: your silence isn't about manipulation, it's about self respect. It's about recognizing that chasing someone who isn't matching your effort drains your strength. By stepping back, you aren't punishing her, you're protecting your own energy, and that decision alone shifts the dynamic. She feels the steadiness in you. She senses the emotional control you've gained. She sees the difference between a man who needs attention and a man who commands it. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting her own behavior back at her. It forces her to confront what she contributed, what she ignored, and what she lost. And that realization becomes powerful enough to make her rethink everything. Sometimes the loudest message you can send is the one delivered without a single word. When you stop chasing her, something subtle but powerful begins to happen in her mind. She starts to compare your new behavior to the way you used to show up for her. That contrast alone can trigger a wave of unexpected emotions. Because when a man pulls back after giving effort, attention, and consistency, a woman can't help but wonder why the dynamic shifted. Even if she once believed she didn't need your attention, its absence suddenly exposes how much space it actually occupied in her life. This internal shift isn't loud or obvious, it's quiet, private, and often something she won't admit to anyone, not even herself. At first, she might brush it off, telling herself she's fine and unaffected, but the human mind naturally leans into the things that feel unfamiliar. When you were chasing, she could predict your reactions. She knew you would text, call, or try to resolve things. That predictability gave her emotional security without requiring effort from her end. Now she's dealing with uncertainty, and uncertainty is the birthplace of emotional attachment. She begins to think about the moment when your attention was constant. She recalls how your consistency made her feel valued, and she realizes that she was benefiting from that energy more than she ever allowed herself to admit. This phase often leads her to reevaluate the entire connection. She starts questioning whether she misjudged the situation, whether she took you for granted, whether she underestimated your importance. The pullback forces her into introspection. She looks at her behavior, the things she said, the way she responded, the moments she ignored your efforts. And now that you're silent, those moments replay in her mind with a different emotional tone. Regret may creep in, curiosity grows stronger. She begins to wonder what caused the change in you. And it's not just emotional reflection, it's also ego. When a man who once pursued suddenly stops, it challenges her assumptions. It disrupts the belief that she has endless time, endless control, and endless influence. Women, like men, don't like losing someone who once valued them, even if they weren't ready to reciprocate before. Your silence removes the comfort of being chosen, and now she is forced to consider that you may no longer be waiting. That possibility alone can shake her, especially if she expected you to always be there. This is also the stage where she begins observing you more closely. She pays attention to your behavior, your mood, your social presence, your energy. Even if she doesn't reach out, she's watching. She notices if you seem happier without her, calmer, more focused. She notices if you're leveling up, working on yourself, or simply carrying a piece that she didn't expect. That quiet growth makes her rethink her own decision making. It makes her question if she misjudged your value. And in this reflection, she begins to feel something she never felt when you were chasing the fear of losing you. This quiet shift in perspective lays the foundation for everything that happens next. When you stop chasing her, the silence you create isn't just the absence of words or actions. It becomes a space where she starts hearing her own thoughts more clearly. And in that space, something unexpected happens. She begins to feel the weight of your absence in a way she didn't anticipate. This is where her emotions slowly shift from feeling neutral or detached to feeling drawn toward you again, often without fully understanding why. She starts realizing that the peace you've built within yourself makes you harder to replace, and that realization begins to change the way she views you. At first, she might tell herself that she's not affected. She may act confident, distracted, or completely unbothered, but when the consistency she once took for granted is no longer there, her emotions naturally start adjusting. Humans are wired to crave stability and familiarity, and when something that once provided comfort suddenly disappears, the mind instinctively tries to bring it back. Without you chasing her, she begins to feel a subtle emotional pull, not because you're manipulating her, but because people often miss what they realize they can't control anymore. Slowly, she begins noticing the difference in how she feels when you're silent. She pays attention to small things, how she checks her phone more often, how she replays old conversations, how she thinks about what you might be doing. And every time she remembers a moment where you were there for her, she feels a soft tug inside. It's not just longing, it's a shift in emotional gravity. You're no longer orbiting around her. She's starting to rotate around the idea of you. Your silence starts to represent something she didn't expect: strength. Not stubbornness, but emotional stability. It shows restraint, self control, discipline, qualities that naturally draw people in. And when a woman sees a man who is not desperate for her attention, not hungry for validation, and not emotionally dependent, she begins to view him differently. She starts seeing him as a man with depth, someone who is capable of walking away, someone who values himself. This emotional shift also makes her question her own feelings. If she didn't care, then why is she thinking so much? If she was done, then why does your absence feel louder than your presence ever did? These quiet doubts grow stronger with time, nudging her toward a new perspective. She begins imagining what it would feel like if she truly lost you: your presence, your kindness, your energy, your support. And that imagined scenario triggers an emotional response she can't ignore. What she once believed was indifference transforms into curiosity, and curiosity slowly turns into concern. That concern becomes a desire to reconnect, even if she doesn't admit it out loud. And all of this happens because your silence acts as a mirror, reflecting your growth back at her and revealing her own emotions more clearly than ever before. And this is the moment where she begins to realize she might actually want you back. When you stop chasing her, she doesn't just notice the silence, you force her to face something she rarely had to confront before: the reality of your worth. When you were always available, always reaching out, always showing effort, she didn't have to evaluate what you truly brought into her life. Your presence was guaranteed, your energy was predictable, and your attention was a resource she thought she could tap into anytime she wanted. But when you step back, when you stop trying to win her over, suddenly she's left to measure what her life feels like without the certainty of you in it. And that shift creates a powerful internal reaction. She begins comparing how she feels now to how she felt when you were giving her all. Maybe she didn't appreciate the small gestures before: your consistency, your interest, your emotional support. But in your absence, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. The moments where you used to check on her, where you made her laugh, where you offered calm and stability, those memories become markers. And as she thinks about them, she starts to realize that no one else is bringing that same energy into her life. That gap in her emotional world becomes a silent reminder of the value you once contributed. The more she sits with this comparison, the clearer it becomes to her that you weren't just another guy. Your presence actually changed her emotional landscape. You brought a sense of grounding she didn't recognize until it was gone. When a woman feels protected, heard, or understood for the first time in a long time, those feelings imprint on her. And once that imprint exists, she can't simply erase it. So when you stop chasing, you give her the space to evaluate what you meant to her, something she couldn't do when you were always right there, ready to give. Your silence makes her weigh your qualities against the people around her. Maybe the new people in her life don't listen the way you did. Maybe they don't bring peace. Maybe they bring drama or inconsistency. Maybe they don't understand her humor, her emotional rhythms, or the small details you once remembered effortlessly. Every disappointment she experiences with others becomes a subtle reminder of you. Not because you're perfect, but because you stood out in ways she didn't appreciate at the time. And this reflection doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens slowly, quietly, over days and weeks. A thought here, a memory there, a realization that you were more than she admitted. A moment of truth where she sees clearly that the things she dismissed were actually the things she needed. And this internal comparison builds an emotional gravity that starts pulling her toward you, even if she resists at first. By stepping away, you didn't lose value, you amplified it. And now she's realizing that your absence isn't just quiet, it's meaningful. When you stop chasing her, the space you create is more than physical, it's emotional, psychological, and deeply revealing. She begins to notice patterns she previously ignored. When someone is constantly available, it's easy for others to take their presence for granted. She didn't have to think about what it means when you cared, when you made the effort, when you invested your time and energy. But your absence forces her to confront the reality that those things weren't trivial, they were meaningful. The very act of stepping back, of not chasing, gives her the rare opportunity to evaluate what she lost, what she let go, and what she may have undervalued in the past. It's in this quiet space that clarity begins to emerge for her. Your lack of pursuit creates a sense of uncertainty that she wasn't used to before. She knew you'd always be there, your actions predictable and reliable. Now, with the silence, she's forced to reflect on the void left behind. She begins to replay your interactions, your gestures, your words, your patience, and the care you showed that she once overlooked. Each memory becomes a building block of recognition as she slowly realizes that the qualities she once dismissed or took for granted were actually rare and valuable. This is the point where regret starts to surface. It's subtle at first, just a lingering thought here or there, but it grows steadily. The awareness that she can't simply replace you with someone else triggers an internal reckoning. The truth of your worth starts to crystallize for her because absence highlights value more effectively than presence ever could. When she saw you constantly, your effort blended in the background of her everyday life. But now, your silence makes those efforts stand out. She begins to understand that the reliability, respect, and emotional stability you provided weren't common, they were exceptional. This realization is often accompanied by frustration and a touch of anxiety because she sees the difficulty of finding someone who matches what you brought into her life. And that tension, that inner conflict, becomes the driving force behind her reconsideration of your importance. During this time, she also experiences a sense of longing, not necessarily immediate or overt, but quiet, persistent, and undeniable. She notices the little things that are missing, the absence of your support, the lack of someone who understood her rhythms, the person who made her feel secure and valued. And with each passing day, the significance of what she lost becomes more evident. Your silence, your deliberate choice to step back, does more than teach her a lesson. It allows her to process her feelings honestly without the distraction of your immediate presence. She is forced to grapple with her true emotions, and in that reflection, your value shines brighter than ever before. By choosing not to chase, you allow her to see what she never truly appreciated. You create an environment where reflection and recognition are inevitable. The realization grows that you weren't just another person in her life, you were the one she underestimated, and now she feels the impact of that oversight. And in this quiet awareness, she begins to understand your significance, often too late, but undeniably. The final and perhaps most powerful consequence of your silence is the awakening of her respect and admiration for the very qualities she once overlooked. When you stop chasing, you stop proving yourself continuously. You step out of the predictable routine of constant attention. And in that absence, she begins to see who you really are. Your restraint is not a punishment, nor is it a game. It is a demonstration of self respect, personal boundaries, and an understanding that your worth is not dependent on her validation. This shift forces her to reevaluate her assumptions about you and the dynamic that once existed. She realizes that the patience, loyalty, and emotional stability you consistently offered were not to be taken lightly, and that these qualities are rare, not easily replaced. In the quiet space your absence creates, she begins to notice the little things that define your presence. The calm confidence you exuded, the way you carried yourself without neediness or desperation, the small gestures of care that went unnoticed before, they all stand out now. Each memory becomes sharper, more vivid, and more significant. The void you leave is not empty, it is filled with reflection and revelation. She starts to grasp that the consistency you displayed, the effort you made without expecting immediate reward, and the integrity in your actions were marks of someone truly valuable. And in that realization, a deep respect forms, not just for the person you were to her, but for the man you inherently are. Your silence also gives her the opportunity to confront her own behaviors and decisions. She begins to ask herself why she didn't notice your value earlier, why she may have taken your presence for granted, and why she allowed opportunities with someone as rare as you to slip away. This internal reckoning is often uncomfortable, but it is necessary. It forces her to acknowledge the imbalance she contributed to in the relationship and recognize that what she had was extraordinary. Through this reflection, admiration emerges, not as a superficial attraction, but as a profound respect for your character, your boundaries, and the quiet strength you displayed. By not chasing, you communicate an unspoken message that your life, your time, and your energy are not commodities to be exploited, but treasures to be valued. This alone compels her to reassess her approach, her assumptions, and her understanding of meaningful connection. She realizes that you are not merely a man who is available when convenient, but someone who embodies self discipline, dignity, and emotional intelligence. And this awareness creates a magnetic pull that is difficult to resist. Admiration grows naturally from understanding your true worth. Ultimately, the silence teaches her that losing someone like you is not trivial. She sees the depth of your value only when it is absent, and that absence speaks louder than words ever could. She begins to understand that your presence was a gift, not an obligation, and that the qualities she may have overlooked, patience, loyalty, respect, and self respect, are foundational, irreplaceable, and deeply admirable. In the end, your decision to step back does not just change her perception of you, it transforms her understanding of what it means to truly value someone.